Georgia. Ambassador, good to see you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Más bien, más bien.
Ha ido a cambiarse al hotel antes porque tenía problemas.
Prime Minister, Prime Minister.
Minister, welcome back again. You know the way?
Yeah, I do. I just had to switch dress.
No problem.
She wants
Shoe stress.
Okay.
summit is an important meeting because it's the occasion to decide on the membership for Finland and for Sweden, and the EU fully supports that important decision. It's also important because this is the occasion to reaffirm a very firm and concrete support for Ukraine. We are all together. The EU, together with NATO, we share the same values, the same principles, and that's why today, in the following hours, we will work with all the colleagues in order to prepare the strengthening of this partnership, the EU, NATO, all together for more safety, for more security, and also in order to promote and to defend our fundamental common values and principles. Merci beaucoup.
Excuse me, sir. Is Finland and Sweden going to be invitee in this Madrid summit? Invitee members of NATO.
It's the responsibility of the NATO authorities to decide how they organize the format of the meeting. In my capacity of President of the European Council, I just want to say that it's extremely important for us to support this decision taken by Finland and Sweden, with a lot of support of the citizens of those countries to apply to become a member of NATO, because it will strengthen the security and the safety across the European continent, and that's why I welcome this positive signal that has been sent yesterday.
Should European countries be looking at increasing their defence spending now?
Yes. And we are doing that because we have decided to increase by 200 billion euros in the following years our defence spending. But we want to defend more, but it's not enough. We want also to reduce the level of fragmentation in order to be more efficient and to have more capabilities. And I'm absolutely convinced that a stronger EU pillar without NATO will make NATO stronger, safer, and will also reinforce the transatlantic alliance. For me, this is a top priority. Thank you.
Michel, you have the very first NATO European dinner tonight, I believe. It's the first time that both NATO leaders and European leaders will have dinner. Can you talk a little bit about how this war has pushed the European community, but also the EU and NATO together, and the steps that you're taking as two different alliances to try and respond to Russia?
In fact, the cooperation between NATO and the EU is not new. We have the same values and principles, and we have the same common goals and the same common purposes. But it is true that because of that war, this is very visible, the way we are working together, the way we are cooperating. I give you one concrete example. Only a few hours after the start of the war, the EU, through the leaders, the 27 head of states and head of government, took a historic decision, because we took the decision to mobilize money, European money, to provide lethal military equipment to Ukraine. And only a few hours later, the first lethal military equipment were deployed in Ukraine. It means that we spoke for many years about European defense, but certainly the recent months we made a lot of progress on a topic which is good for the EU, which is also good for the cooperation with NATO. Thank you.
절로 갈까? 글로 오시래요? 글로 갈까요? 자리가.
Du vet, side. Henrik kommer att ge dig perspektivet så det är
Knappast. Det här är vet.
NATO gave us
That's not your fault.
here.
That's not your fault.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but sorry,
It's also my person.
but just to work as a college in a good way.
Yeah, it can have a side payment.
One moment, let me. But just to work as a college in a good way.
Yeah, it can have a side payment.
One moment, let me.
Aquí estamos. Hoy por lo menos está más entretenido, aunque...
Bueno, nada, sí.
Venga, vamos.
Ander, ¿me oyes? Pues nada, que aquí enfrente donde estamos Diego y yo, corre la brisa y hay sombra, porque ahí te estás muriendo. Justo enfrente de donde estás, que estamos Diego y yo, se está fresquito y corre el aire.
¿Qué? ¿Qué viene ahora? Yo me quiero ir a mi casa. Toda la vida en Japón, tal. Bueno, que estos efectos protocolarios, darle la mano y que venga y que pegarse una carga. Caravana, viene caravana. ¿Eso no es? ¿Sobreactúa?
Australia. Australia.
Welcome. Hi. Officially welcome now. How are you? Excellent. Yourself?
No, I have to do...
y retoca estos ponen ahí, macho. Yo he hablado con el inspector de ahí, el del otro, ¿no? También, vale, pues yo para que funciona y querer, claro, porque tengo que...
Yo veo uno, sí queda uno, tres.
Ha cogido una embajada de Estados Unidos y ahí ya después me ha llamado 2 veces más y he dicho yo. Estas llamadas mira, oye, mira, que tengo todo el secretario de Estado que sé. Aquí da el aire, aquí da el aire.
Sí, aquí brisa.
Es lo que te decía. No, pero aquí da mucho el aire. Aquí
Por donde hay
ponte aquí donde estoy yo.
Vos ya no me
Ponte aquí donde estoy yo, más o menos aquí. Sí, por aquí. Cuando vienes a tomar un proyecto,
estamos ahora.
mira, aquí ya se ha llevado otro chico. Me he dado la vuelta entera. Está lo que está pasando.
Might be Korea.
Ah, sí, sí, pero ahí están los
나토 정상회의 첫 참석이신데 중국은 뭐 대가를 치를 것이다 이렇게 반발하기도 하는데 이런 상황에서 이제 연설하시잖아요. 좀 어떤 말씀 하실 예정이신가요?
나토가 이제 설립된 지 74년이 됐습니다만은 그동안 그 정치 군사적인 안보에서 공급망을 포함한 이런 경제 안보와 이런 포괄적인 안보로 안보 개념이 지금 바뀌어 가고 그리고 특정 지역의 그 영내 그 안보 상황이 전 세계적인 파급을 주기 때문에 그 특정 지역의 동맹만으로는 그 안보 위기가 해결되지 않는다는 공감대를 지금 갖게 됐고 또 우크라이나 사태가 이러한 그 인식을 더욱 확장을 시켰습니다. 그래 이번에 한국, 일본, 호주, 뉴질랜드 같은 이러한 AP4가 이 나토에 참석하게 된 것도 그러한 공감대를 바탕으로 이제 이루어진 것이고 그래서 이 인태 지역과 나토 간의 어떤 긴밀한 상호 협력이 더욱 중요한 때가 됐고 그리고 특정 국가를 거명하기보다 이런 자유와 인권, 법치를 중시하는 그런 규범에 입각한 질서가 존중되는 그런 협력을 우리 나토 국가들과 인태 국가들이 함께 연대해서 만들어 가야 된다. 막 그런 차원의 이번 그 나토 회의 참석의 의미가 있다고 저는 생각합니다.
네. 그리고 한미일 정상회담도 지금 4년 9개월 만에 열리잖아요. 이 대북 공조 강화를 위해서 뭐 일본과 미국에 좀 어떤 제안하실 계획이십니까?
그건 뭐 오늘 아니더라도 한미일 간에 이런 좀 더 강화되는 것으로 귀결될 것이라고 저는 생각하고 있습니다. 네.
한 가지 더 여쭤보면요.
네.
지금 이번 순방 계기로 사실 기시다 일본 총리하고는 처음으로 대면을 하신 거잖아요.
네, 그렇습니다.
어제 만났고 오늘도 많은 회의에서 만나실
네.
텐데 좀 첫인상 어떠셨고 한일 관계 좀 어떻게 전망하십니까?
뭐 어제 국왕 만찬에서 잠깐 이제 대화를 나눴고 오늘 좀 상당 시간 AP4 회의를 했는데 뭐 제가 받은 인상은 우리 기시다 총리와 한일의 현안들을 풀어가고 또 양국의 그 미래 공동 이익을 위해서 양국 관계를 발전시킬 수 있는 그런 파트너가 될 수 있다라고 저는 확신을 하게 됐습니다. 네.
마침 오늘 또 정치 시작하신 지 1년 되셔가지고요. 그걸 여기 이제 나토 여기서 맞이한 것도 참 감회가 색다를 것 같거든요.
네.
어떻습니까?
제가 작년 딱 오늘 정치를 시작하게 된 그 이유에 대해서 자유민주주의와 법의 지배를 법이 지배하는 이 사회를 만들겠다고 말씀을 드렸고 오늘 이 나토에서의 그 주제도 결국은 자유와 법이 지배하는 세계 질서를 만들어서 평화와 번영을 이룩하자는 그런 것이기 때문에 서로 국내외 문제가 다르지 않다고 생각합니다. 네.
There are the two nice girls that are with us in the task group. Eagle guys. Okay, Lisa? It's from Spain.
Okay, it's a bit weird because then normally when we do a summit, yeah, quite a bit.
Wow!
They built a few more buildings, right?
The venue. That's actually the size of the pitch. Yeah. That's beautiful, actually.
He's an architect.
Yeah. I studied architecture. And you use the security to stadium, actually, I guess.
Yes.
Today is an historic day for Sweden and for the Swedish people. When we become a member of NATO, that will increase the security for Sweden and the Swedish citizens. But more than that, it will increase the security for all NATO countries and for the citizens in all NATO countries, because Sweden will be a security provider to NATO. So I'm very much looking forward to the meeting today, but then also for the continuing process until Sweden will become a full member of NATO. Thank you.
Magdalena Andersson, enligt nyhetsbyrån AFP kräver Turkiet att 33 personer ska utlämnas.
Jag har alla svenska journalister där sen.
Vad svarar du på det?
Jag har alla svenska journalister där.
Sí, yo creo. Pero es que no puedo girar por el otro lado, tengo el muro.
Jag ska börja med att säga det är klart det är en historisk dag för Sverige och Finland, men också för hela NATO. Bakgrunden till vår NATO-ansökan är ju Rysslands invasion i Ukraina och det totalt förändrade säkerhetsläget. Och den bakgrunden är det väldigt bra att vi nu kan ta nästa steg mot ett fullvärdigt medlemskap i NATO. Det kommer ju vara sån här accession talk i början på veckan och sen kommer det kunna bli in my peace. Och därefter följer då processen med ratificeringar i alla länder. Hur lång tid det tar, det är ju upp till hur snabbt de olika parlamenten hanterar detta. Många länder har ju nu en tävling om att vi vara de första. Men det kan ju ta tid och det har vi sagt hela tiden att vi bedömer att det kan ta upp till ett år. Och det är därför det är så viktigt att vi har de säkerhetsförsäkringarna som vi har från andra NATO-länder. Den överenskommelse som vi har mellan Sverige, Finland och Turkiet igår, den innehåller egentligen tre olika former av, eller tre olika delar. Dels handlar det om sånt som Sverige sedan tidigare arbetar med. Det handlar bland annat om att vi skärper vår terroristlagstiftning. Det har vi gjort flera gånger senaste åren och kommer ny lagstiftning på plats sen i 1 juli och bedöms att komma ytterligare lagstiftning under nästa år. Ett annat är saker som följer av att vi blir medlemmar i NATO. Till exempel så är det naturligt att man kommer se den svenska vapenexportlagstiftningen annorlunda när vi är medlemmar i en militärallians och exporten till länder i den militäralliansen. Och det tredje är en del där vi vill säga att vi och Finland tillsammans med Turkiet kommer arbeta närmare för att bekämpa terrorism och inte minst kopplat till PKK. Här vill jag också säga att här finns ju, har ju Turkiet så vi följer den svenska lagstiftningen och också enligt att det finns en europeisk konvention kring detta. Och det tredje är ju att det gör ju också att är det inte så att man ägnar sig åt terroristaktiviteter behöver man inte vara orolig.
Känner du till den här listan med 33 personer var de här utklämmer i Sverige som Turkiet enligt nyhetsbyrån AFP ska begära att Sverige och Finland lämnar ut?
Ja, vi har också sett tidigare, jag vet inte exakt om den här listan har kommit in till Sverige än, men det har ju också tidigare kommit in. De kommer vi naturligtvis att hantera i enlighet med svensk och internationell.
Ah, fallo mío, sin querer, perdóname.
Do you want to make a statement first?
Yeah, sure. This morning I attended and participated in the NATO Public Forum with the Belgian Prime Minister, with the Spanish Prime Minister, our hosts here at the NATO Summit, and also the Foreign Secretary from the United Kingdom. I then as well have had a number of successful bilateral meetings, including with the President of the European Commission and the President of the European Council. At those discussions I've advanced and got a commitment from the European Commission to progress the Australia-European trade agreement that has been stalled in recent times. I also had a breakfast meeting this morning with the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. I spoke about AUKUS and our support for AUKUS, as well the Australia-UK Free Trade Agreement, which we hope to come into effect later this year, but also the important relations that we have between our two nations. In addition, we had a very successful meeting of the AP4, the Asia-Pacific Four, who are invited to this summit, with Prime Minister Kishida, President Yoon, Prime Minister Ardern of New Zealand. There we discussed the important focus of this NATO summit on the Asia-Pacific region. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has solidified the support amongst democratic countries for the rules-based international order and a determination to continue to provide support to the government and the people of Ukraine who are suffering as a result of this breach of international law and this brutal invasion by Vladimir Putin's regime. Vladimir Putin has made a strategic mistake, because what his actions have done is unite the democratic world and provide a real determination to make sure that the resilience being shown by the Ukrainian people is backed up by resilience and support from democratic countries, including NATO, but also countries throughout the world. This meeting has been very important and is shown by the fact that NATO now has 2 additional applicants to join, Sweden and Finland, that historically have taken neutral positions, have been motivated by the Russian brutality in Ukraine to seek to join NATO. This is a very positive development and shows just how wrong Vladimir Putin's judgment and ongoing actions have been in advancing what he saw as the cause of Russia. Indeed, what it has done is to strengthen NATO and to strengthen the democratic forces throughout the world who are determined to support international order. I also had a meeting this morning with Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, and congratulated him on the successful outcomes we've already seen from this summit, and recommitted Australia to providing support for NATO and for participation in some NATO exercises that we will do later this year.
So Mr Stoltenberg is asking nations to be in this, backing Ukraine for the long haul. Is Australia in for the long haul?
Australia is certainly here for the long haul. We've already been Australia's largest non-NATO contributor with $285 million of military assistance, but also $65 million of humanitarian assistance. This is a struggle that must be won, because it's not just about Ukraine and Russia. It is also about whether the rules-based international order will continue to apply. It's about a breach of that order by one of the UN Permanent Security Council members. It's about whether the UN Charter means something, and that's why this attack, unprovoked by Russia, must be resisted, and the international community must show the same resolve and courage that the people of Ukraine are showing.
China accuses NATO and through them the AP4 of constructing an imaginary foe in China. How should NATO view China?
Well, what we saw is prior to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we saw a without limits partnership between Russia and China. We've seen a failure of China to condemn any of the Russian aggression that has occurred against Ukraine. China must look at what is happening, look at the resolve that is there from throughout the world, and should be condemning Russia's actions.
You said that you had an agreement from the EU Commissioner to progress free trade talks. What does that actually mean? It
will mean that there'll be further talks as soon as October, but perhaps even sooner. We know that in order to progress the agreement, we want to see between now and March real progress. That had stalled. That means holding multiple meetings, identifying what the issues are that need to be resolved, and then set about resolving them. It is quite clearly in Australia's interest to diversify our trade relationships. Europe is a market with some 450 million people. We have close people-to-people relations, but we haven't always maximised the economic opportunities. What has provided an opportunity to break through is the Australian government's different position on climate change. That has meant that Europe are much more willing to re-enter negotiations and to progress this agreement.
Just a couple more questions, PM. Can you give us an idea about the extent of that opportunity that a deal with EU presents to Australia?
It presents enormous opportunity, both in terms of people-to-people relations, in terms of education and other services. As well, it provides an opportunity for European businesses to be located in Australia and to use it as a springboard into the fastest growing region of the world in human history. It provides an opportunity for us to potentially sell more products into the region. Australia has the best produce in the world. We should be very proud of it. It is a product that is well worth countries buying, but at the moment there are various barriers to our trade here in Europe, and we need to make sure that with like-minded countries we engage in more trade to the benefit of both Europe and Australia. Essentially, when it comes down to, it's about jobs and our economy and our growth.
Just finally, PM, just throwing forward to France, how confident are you of repairing the relationship there? Malcolm Turnbull says that you're leagues ahead because you're not Scott Morrison. I think that's a compliment.
Well, I had a very constructive discussion with President Macron last night. He's a warm character, and we have had phone conversations previously. I very much look forward to my visit to Paris. I thank President Macron for his welcome, and I thank him for the discussion that we had last night. Last night was a real opportunity for Australia to engage in a less than formal setting with a range of people from President Macron, President Biden, Olaf Scholz, a range of the leaders who were there. I took the opportunity to talk about Australia's national interests, to talk about our different plans. One of the things that is clear to me is that the whole world has noticed that Australia has a different position on climate change. What that does is give Australia a seat at the global table of opportunity, and I intend to seize that opportunity. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Una pregunta.
¿Qué pasa? ¿Que mañana no para acá y
no podría estar en el campo,
lleva más que yo. Sino que ya yo creo que a veces no lo luego. Eso que lo que lleva.
Antes no me fijaba, cuando la normalidad es que ya era no, hay gente
yo diría sería como
para ti, para nosotros, de hecho, para nada, vale. Y me dice que a ver, yo te lo digo, ¿te compras para no, cuando vamos a
por ejemplo yo, o sea, yo que a veces yo cambio una camisa
para traer
pues sí, yo camisa
enciendas todavía. ¿Ha dado su regazo?
And then the idea was to provide a different picture, let's say, and also have
Slovenia. Tanya, quickly. Sorry.
Nice to meet you. Hello. I'm the special representative. Oh yes, really nice meeting you. Good to see you again. You want to take this one? Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. I think it's Anna-Lena there. Oh. It's Anna-Lena.
Okay, we need another one. And then I saw you on the street. Where's the entrance?
Yeah, it's on this way.
We are making it.
Yeah, we haven't met. Hi, I'm Melanie. I'm from Canada. I'm the foreign minister.
Medizin from Belgium, Minister of Defense. I'm the special representative.
And I live in Strasbourg.
So this is okay. We haven't met yet. Yeah, nice. From Belgium. Ah, nice.
She's the defense minister.
Yeah. Irene Philippe, the special representative.
Yeah,
nice.
She's the first voice within NATO.
We haven't seen each other today either.
Okay.
So we do it again.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Now.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the last one. Last one. Not sure.
Okay, now let's talk. Very good to know. Let's work.
Okay, so.
May I propose something actually? At the same time.
I speak 2 minutes to introduce, then they go and we do whatever we want.
Okay, okay, great.
It's just
great.
okay.
Because we have an open.
Yes. And then where do we minutes?
Where do we sit?
Where do we sit?
Yeah, I think where usually you are.
I think I missed the family photo.
Oh, also.
For that reason.
This is empty. So I
it's for us to put our 80 words on.
I missed the family photo.
Thank you very much for such an important issue, very dear to our hearts.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Good afternoon. NATO leaders have just taken decisions to transform and strengthen our alliance at this pivotal time for our security. President Putin's war against Ukraine has shattered peace in Europe and has created the biggest security crisis in Europe since the Second World War. NATO has responded with strength and unity. And President Zelensky's leadership and courage are an inspiration to all of us. I am pleased that he could join our meeting today. President Zelensky made clear that Ukraine relies on our continued support, and our message to him was equally clear. Ukraine can count on us for as long as it takes. Allies will continue to provide major military and financial help, and today leaders agreed to strengthen our support by agreeing a comprehensive assistance package for Ukraine. This includes secure communications, fuel, medical supplies and body armor, equipment to counter mines and chemical and biological threats, and hundreds of portable anti-drone systems. Over the longer term, we will help Ukraine transition from Soviet-era equipment to modern NATO equipment, boost interoperability, and further strengthen its defense and security institutions. All of this shows our commitment to Ukraine's future and that our commitment is unshakable. A strong, independent Ukraine is vital for the stability of the Euro-Atlantic area. Today, at the summit, NATO leaders decided a fundamental shift in our defense and deterrence to respond to a new security reality. We will strengthen our forward defenses. We will enhance our battle groups in the eastern part of the alliance up to brigade levels. We will transform the NATO response force and increase the number of high readiness forces to well over 300,000. We will also boost our ability to reinforce, including with more pre-positioned equipment and stockpiles of military supplies, more forward-deployed capabilities like air defense, strengthened command and control, and upgraded defense plans with forces pre-assigned to defend specific allies. This is the first time since the Cold War that we have these kind of plans with pre-assigned forces. They will work with home defense forces and become familiar with local terrain, facilities and pre-positioned stocks, so that we can reinforce even faster. Doing more will cost more. Today, allies recommitted to the pledge we made in 2014 to spend at least 2% of GDP on defense. Since 2014, European allies and Canada have spent an extra $350 billion. 9 allies now reach or exceed the 2% target. 19 allies have clear plans to reach it by 2024. And an additional 5 have concrete commitments to meet it thereafter. 2% is increasingly seen as a floor, not as a ceiling. Allies are also investing more in modern capabilities, contributing more to NATO deployments and exercises, and we have agreed to increase NATO's common funding to finance the facilities we need for reinforcement, as well as more training and more exercises, command and control, and engagement with partners. We face a radical change to our security environment, and strategic competition is rising around the world. So today, leaders have endorsed NATO's new strategic concept, and it is published as we speak. And this is the new strategic concept. The current one was agreed in 2010, and this is very different compared to what we agreed back then. It makes clear that Russia poses the most significant and direct threat to our security. In the current concept, we state that Russia is a strategic partner. In the current concept, we do not mention China with a single word. In this, allies states that China's coercive policies challenge our interests, security, and values. The concept also sets out our joint position on countering terrorism, as well as cyber and hybrid threats. Today, we took other important steps to continue our adaptation. We are launching the NATO Innovation Fund. Backed by allies, it will invest €1 billion in startups and funds developing dual-use emerging technologies, such as artificial intelligence. Together with NATO's Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic, or DIANA, the new fund will harness the best new technology for transatlantic security. Climate change is a defining challenge of our time, and NATO is committed to playing our part in mitigating the impact on our security. Today, we agreed a new methodology to map military greenhouse gas emissions, and we agreed concrete targets to cut NATO emissions. Our aim is to cut emissions by NATO bodies and commands by at least 45% by 2030 and move towards net zero by 2050. This is an important step for our alliance. We cannot choose between having green militaries or strong militaries. They must be both. So we must maintain our operational effectiveness and readiness as we continue to adapt. In a more dangerous and competitive world, we must work even more closely with like-minded nations and organizations. This afternoon, our Indo-Pacific partners, Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and the Republic of Korea, will take part in a NATO summit for the first time. We will also be joined by the European Union, Finland, Georgia, and Sweden. Today, NATO leaders took the historic decision to invite Finland and Sweden to become members of NATO. The agreement concluded last night by Turkey, Finland, and Sweden paved the way for this decision. I would like to thank Turkey, Finland, and Sweden for accepting my invitation to engage in negotiations to find a united way forward. This has been hard work over many weeks, with multiple contacts at many different levels. Senior officials have had 2 rounds of talks in Brussels under my auspices. And last night we met President Erdogan, President Niinistö, and Prime Minister Andersson, and we were able to reach the final agreement. This is a good agreement for Turkey. It is a good agreement for Finland and Sweden, and it is a good agreement for NATO. And with that, I'm ready to take your questions.
Okay, we'll start with CNN.
Thank you so much. So I have two questions. The first is, I'm wondering if you could talk a bit more about the meetings you've had over the day about ironing out the details of the new force model, and that includes the question of permanent basing. And I'm wondering, Putin has said that Finland and Sweden's membership bids don't pose a direct threat to Russia, but he has also warned them about becoming bases for NATO forces or equipment. So I'm wondering whether NATO has any plans to put permanent bases in those countries now that they've been formally invited into the alliance.
First of all, the decision to invite Finland and Sweden to become members demonstrates that NATO's door is open. It demonstrates that President Putin did not succeed in closing NATO's door. NATO's door remains open. And it also demonstrates that we respect the sovereign right of every nation to choose their own path. So we, of course, respected Finland and Sweden when they decided to stay out of NATO for many, many years. But then we also welcome them and respect their decision to join NATO. NATO allies have already stepped up, and NATO has increased its presence in the Baltic-Nordic region. And of course, when they become members, we can do even more together. What we will make sure with our presence is that we are able to defend all allies, including, of course, Finland and Sweden. And this links to the first part of your question. When it comes to this fundamental shift in our deterrence and defense, this is about air, sea, land, cyber. But when we speak about land, that entails or is composed of three main elements. Partly more forward presence. We will enhance, reinforce the battle groups we have already deployed up to brigade levels. So that's more presence, especially in the eastern part of the alliance. The second element is more pre-positioned equipment. We know that actually to move people can go quite fast, but to move heavy equipment, battle tanks, ammunition, fuel, all kinds of supplies, that take time. So if you have that pre-positioned in place, then you can move in very quickly with the personnel. So the second element on top of the increased presence will be more pre-positioned equipment. And then on top of that, we will have for the first time since the Cold War, pre-assigned forces in, of course, their home countries, but these forces will then rotate in and out. They will train, they will learn how to operate together with the home forces, for instance, in the Baltic countries, or in Poland, or other places in the alliance. They will be familiar with the terrain, with the pre-positioned equipment. And for instance, one example of this is what Germany just has announced, that they are now pre-assigning, designating a specific brigade in Germany that will train and, of course, work together with the already German battle group in Lithuania, and with more pre-positioned equipment. Then this German brigade has a specific responsibility and I would say advantages because they have trained there and know the country to reinforce and support Lithuania if needed. So these are the three elements. You can also look at the NATO homepage. You can see more details there in the fact sheet. And then, of course, the announcement by different allies today makes it also is actually giving substance to the decisions that allies made today.
Interfax Ukraine.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, Interfax Ukraine. Happy birthday, Anna. And thank you from all my colleagues for everything you are doing for us. Sorry, Secretary General. Question for you. Coming back to President Zelensky's address, what kind of reaction was from leaders in the room? Can you give a little bit more on this? What will be the main message to Ukrainian people? Do you think it will be possible for Ukraine then, when this war will be over, to join NATO like Sweden and Finland without membership action plan? Thank you.
Well, the message from the leaders in the meeting and in the room was a very strong expression of support. And not only expression of support, but actually they announced additional systems, weapons, equipment that allies, NATO allies, are now delivering to Ukraine. Germany made announcements, Norway made announcements, and other countries made announcements for additional support, military support to Ukraine. The Netherlands also made announcements on more heavy weapons to Ukraine. So part of this is something we do. It's also as a message in deeds, but also in words, but also in deeds. But I think also it's very clear that allies are prepared for long haul. Wars are unpredictable, but we have to be prepared for the long haul, and that was also the clear message to all of us in the room from President Zelensky, and our answer was yes, we are prepared, because they are fighting for their independence, but they're also fighting for values which are important for NATO, fundamental for NATO. The sovereignty, the territorial integrity of every nation, and therefore this matters for our security. Our focus now is to support Ukraine. This war will, as most other wars, at some stage end at the negotiating table. But it is important that Ukraine is able to get an agreement on their terms, which is acceptable for Ukraine. This is the close link between what they can achieve around the negotiating table and their strength on the battlefield, and therefore our focus now is to support them on the battlefield with many different types of lethal and non-lethal support. That is the focus, and then of course we have demonstrated today that NATO's door remains open, and we also reiterate the decision we made in Bucharest on membership for Ukraine.
Spanish television.
Mr. Secretary General, welcome to Madrid. You don't have a crystal ball, but I was wondering, how much longer do you think it's going to take for Finland and Sweden to join the NATO, since it's a pretty urgent situation? Thank you very much.
Well, so far this is the fastest accession protocol ever, accession process ever, because Finland and Sweden applied for membership in May, and now at the end of June, leaders invite them to become members, and we will sign the accession protocol, and then what remains, of course, is the ratification in 30 parliaments. I cannot speak on behalf or promise anything on behalf of 30 different parliaments, but the message in the room is that throughout the alliance there is a strong will to work with parliaments so they can do the ratification as soon as possible. So this has moved fast so far, and of course I expect that the allies are ready to also ratify as soon as possible, but there are different procedures in different countries, so this will take some time in different parliaments.
Global News Canada.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. David Aiken, Global News. You were very gracious greeting the Canadian Prime Minister today. Secretaries General before you have been very gracious greeting Canadian Prime Ministers, but our spending is just awful. It decreased if you measure by GDP. It decreased in absolute terms. We're nowhere near the 2%. It's not your place, but I wonder, how might you convince a Canadian public, a Canadian politician, to spend more on defense? And secondarily, what then might a medium or smaller military power contribute with some of this new focus, new spheres of influence in China, in Asia, as well as the urgent crisis here in Europe? Thank you.
Of course, I expect all allies to meet the guidelines we have set, and we agreed them back in 2014 for the decade up to 2024, and since then the world has just become more dangerous. And I have been a politician myself for many years, and I understand that it's always easier to invest in health, in education and infrastructure instead of allocating money for defense. That's very easy to understand. And that's also the reason why NATO allies reduced defense spending after the end of the Cold War. But if we reduce defense spending when tensions are going down, we have to be able to increase defense spending when tensions are going up and when we live in a more dangerous world. And therefore welcome the fact that all NATO allies have increased defense spending and added a lot. Not all allies have plans in place to be at 2% by 2024, but the vast majority have such plans, and more allies are actually meeting the 2% target or are very close. So, of course, this is a message to all allies, including Canada. At the same time, also welcome the fact that Canada and other allies are providing a lot of capabilities, contributions to NATO missions and operations, and Canada lead the battle group in Latvia. I've been there together with Prime Minister Trudeau, and also with the Defense and the Foreign Minister, and also welcome the fact that Canada is not stepping up its presence in Latvia, and of course this also counts a lot when it comes to contributions to our collective defense.
Thank you. That's, I'm afraid, all that we have time for. Secretary General needs to meet our Indo-Pacific partners. Secretary General.
Thank you so much.